Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the fourth Digital Transformation and Government Conference. My name is Bob Wiseman. I'm the host. And now we are very fortunate to have a wonderful presentation on interoperability, how-to note towards a data-driven public sector. This is going to be led by Youngseok Kim, who's the Senior Governance Specialist at GovTech at the World Bank, and Joanne Martins, who's an IT Officer, Technology and Innovation Lab, and they're coming straight to us from Washington, D.C. Anyways, Youngseok is a Senior Governance Specialist in the Global Governance Global Practice of the World Bank. He's currently working on the GovTech team for supporting GovTech projects and contributing to activities such as case studies, Maturity Index, Academy, policy, how-to notes. And they've got several how-to guides that are really important to understand, not just in the interoperability area, but it's based in the part of the GovTech initiative. That was briefed to you on day one. Anyways, the overall GovTech process. If you don't understand what a GovTech is, take a look at the recordings for day one, where the director was presenting it. Now, prior to joining the World Bank, Youngseok worked in the Ministry of the Interior and Safety of the Republic of Korea, where he contributed to establishing and developing major policies, including Korea's government innovation plan and digital government strategy. He's also worked on policies to support the administrative innovation of local governments. He has a master's in public administration from the University of Southern California. Joanne is a technology and innovation specialist and architect over at the World Bank Group, and she leads the exploration and operationalization of technologies in the context of international development. Prior to joining the World Bank Group, she led large-scale digital and business transformation projects for public and private sector clients across Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa, and she holds a Bachelor in Science honors in computer science and a Master's in Science in System Engineering with Management from the United Kingdom. So without further ado, I look very much forward to your presentation. Over to you, Joanne and Youngseok.
Thank you, Bob, for your great introduction, and thank you for inviting us to this great event. Hello, everyone. My name is Youngseok Kim, a Senior Governance Specialist in GovTech team. I'm very glad to have this opportunity today to share our interoperability how-to note with you. So I noticed that my colleague Zhao already made a presentation the day before about the GovTech initiative. So following his presentation today, Joanne and myself would like to introduce one of our deliverables about interoperability how-to note. So as you might be introduced, the GovTech team in the World Bank developed the GovTech Maturity Index every 2 years. When we see this result, we notice that governments could focus more on improving interconnectivity and interoperability in future GovTech initiatives. That means also at the same time, there were high demands for implementation-oriented advice on interoperability from our client countries. So based on this context, interoperability how-to note was co-developed together with GovTech team and Technology and Innovation Lab from World Bank. And then we also collaborate with the external partner, the Lisbon Council. So this note was very benefited from the interoperability working group. That is 18 members of government, private sector organizations, and think tanks or international organizations. So this working group really shared their experience of what challenges that government may meet when they implement or design interoperability in their country. Also, how to address those challenges to develop this note to more practical and implementation-oriented guidance. So based on this collaboration, this note has 4 main contents. First one is what is interoperability, and the second one is why interoperability matters. The third one is setting the right policy and organizational conditions. And then the last one is implementing digital interoperability. So we would like to focus on how part. This is kind of how to note. So how to support our client countries, our task teams to design and implement interoperability in their country or their projects. The first one is about what is interoperability. Actually, interoperability in the public sector is about enabling connections between ministries, departments, agencies, sectors, government levels, and countries. Through data, information systems, legal agreements, or organizational processes, and shared values and customs. We identified that interoperability is very crucial in facilitating the move from a silo-based approach to a whole-of-government approach. That means instead of every government entity working separately with organization-specific goals, based on interoperability, they can work together towards the achievement of joint goals to better connectivity and interoperable frameworks. These two graphs show the overall interoperability status by GovTech Maturity Index level group. There are two key questions in the GovTech Maturity Index. The first question is there a government interoperability framework? The most of Group A countries responded yes, they have. But as you can see the graph, all of the Group D do not have a government interoperability frameworks. The second question is about, is there a government service bus platform? The responses are very similar with the previous one. So we noticed that there are some rooms to improve interconnectivity and interoperability for the next GovTech initiatives for our developing countries or our client countries. I think you already very well know about the benefits of interoperability. This is a question about why does interoperability matter. Achieving interoperability is very crucial for delivery of integrated citizen-centered public services and the path to a data-driven public sector. An interoperable public sector can contribute to several interrelated benefits for government and citizens also. For example, interoperability enables efficiency gains, live events, and once-only principles, and a service kind of automated and proactive services, omni-channel service delivery, and service composability, and system resilience, and data-driven public sector. So based on these benefits, governments would like to achieve their interoperability in their country to get these benefits and provide more citizen-centric public services to their citizens. The next question is about how to design and implement interoperability in the public sector. Our note suggests 11 modules, actually 6 modules from non-digital interoperability and 5 modules from digital interoperability. The reason we identified non-digital interoperability and digital interoperability is from the discussion with our working group members. When we listened their challenges, we identified many difficulties actually from non-digital part as well. So some people usually think about interoperability is kind of regarded to very relate to the digital technologies, but actually when their real experience in the implementing digital interoperability, so many difficulties and challenges are from non-digital part as well. So based on that discussion, we identified the two kind of interoperability. So the non-digital interoperability includes from policy and institutional setting and to digital skills and talent. And modules in digital interoperability is about data readiness, technology trends, and data architecture, and open standard, and enterprise service buses. Now, we would like to see every module very briefly. So you can see very detailed information in our note. Today, Joanne and I would like to highlight key messages of every module. The first module is about creating the basis for operations, policy, and institutional setting. Strategy, leadership, and coordination are very fundamental considerations for policy and institutional setting. When you had a discussion with working group members, they suggested lack of coordination mechanisms as one of the main challenges they might face. So I would like to highlight institutional coordination across government ministries and agencies, as well as different levels of the public sector. Since interoperability has cross-cutting nature in the public sector, solid coordination mechanisms are very required for coherent and sustainable policy implementation. For example, some of government agencies are very reluctant to share or integrate their data with other agencies. And some of private sectors also can raise the data protection issues. To address these kind of concerns or difficulties or conflicts in time, effective and strong coordination mechanism is very important to prioritize interoperability and leverage data exchange and reuse. The second module is about ensuring proper legal and regulatory frameworks. There are legal and regulatory frameworks covers very diverse domains, such as privacy and data protection, data standard, right to information, the use of interoperability hubs, or the application of the once-only principle, and data ownership and consent. We know that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but having the updated legal and regulatory frameworks in their country is necessary to support kind of complex cross-government architecture of interoperability. The third module is about setting up trustworthy data governance. Data governance is a very broad concept. The note is, but we would like to, this note is focusing on data-driven value creation. Also, governments need to enhance trust, ethics, and data rights in digital era. Creating a trustworthy and safe digital environment for citizens is also important from both a moral and practical perspective. It is a necessary condition for citizens to participate in GovTech system. One of key initiatives in GovTech is citizen-centric service delivery or CivicTech. That means we would like to encourage many citizens to join the journey of GovTech or digital government in country. But when citizens do not have any trust or they have a concern about data protection, it is not easy to encourage them to join this process. So according to the GTMI report, many countries are very trying to establish data protection law and right to information law in place to have a very safe and trustworthy data environment. The next module is about promoting data-driven culture. We know that culture is not easy to understand or not easy to capture, but cultural aspects inspecting interoperability developments are maybe the most difficult to capture, but cultural factors such as habits and beliefs are highly influential for the success of any interoperability project. So we identify the drivers' cultural changes are very clearly demonstrated need to implementation, the only one's principle or co-creation approach with the stakeholders. For example, we noticed that in the United Kingdom, the interoperable projects that was launched in 2019 at the starting level, but now it's taking a lead through the development of a new government data hub. But this is enabled based on their political mandate and budget available as a result of clearly demonstrating need to implement the once-only principle. So when the many stakeholders agreed about the once-only principle, they realize the need or the necessity of the interoperability in the public sector. Also, co-creation approach with the stakeholders, another important driver for the cultural changes toward the data-driven public sector. The PICS module is using policy levels for coherent implementation, such as monitoring and evaluation, pre-evaluation of ICT investment, and standard business cases and agile project management. I just would like to highlight the importance of pre-evaluation in interoperability perspective. That means the existence of pre-evaluation of ICT investments mechanism can contribute to improved alignment on achieving or developing platforms that are in accordance with the interoperability standards defined by national digital government policy. Without pre-evaluation mechanisms, every agency would like to develop their own system or their own platform. So having this kind of pre-evaluation mechanisms, whole of government approach could be achieved in the public sector. The last module in the non-digital part is fostering data-driving digital skills and talent. Skills and talent are the backbone for the digital transformation in the public sector. When we met our client countries in several projects, one of the main challenges they might have is the lack of skills and the human talent some have some experience or expertise in digital or non-digital interoperability. So the digital competence is a significant handicap for sustainable transformation in administrations, especially in the interoperability areas. So the project is not identified newly required digital skills for interoperability, such as AI and machine learning and big data analysis and software and applications, also data management, data visualization, and blockchain. Those new required skills are very critical to implement interoperability very successfully in the public sector. The next modules are from digital interoperability. So my colleague Joanne will present about digital interoperability. Over to you, Joanne.
Thanks a lot, Young, for everything. So just leading off from what Young has put forward, there are 5 modules which we considered when thinking about interoperability from a digital perspective. And the 5 main areas which we're going to talk towards today are your data readiness, looking at key technological trends, thinking about modernizing your data architecture, thinking about application program interfaces, the APIs, and open standards and open sourcing. So we will start off by looking at ensuring data readiness. So with the advent, as we said, of emerging technologies such as AI and big data analysis, the quality of data has become very crucial, especially in the public domain. It plays a crucial role in determining the level of interoperability that can take place within an organization or within the government. So therefore, it is very critical to understand from a capturing and storage perspective, understand what data is actually needed, what is available to be used, and what do you want to use the data for? Why do you need this data, and who needs to have access to that data? So these are very critical questions that need to be asked when looking at data readiness. Then when we look at anticipating key technological trends, with the arrival of fourth industry revolution technologies such as AI, blockchain, IoTs, governments now have to prepare for new sets of interoperability. And to be able to do that, they need to understand these key technological trends from 4 main perspectives. which is technology, people, processes, and ecosystems. When you're looking at the technology, you're looking at it from the perspective of how are these new and emerging technologies, how can they be integrated with more mature and possibly legacy systems that exist today? And then when we're thinking about the people, again, referring back to what my colleague had mentioned around what do we need to do to upskill our staff? Where do our staff need to be upskilled? And then when we look at processes, again, with these new and emerging technologies, they're changing the way we operate. So revisiting and looking at your operating models and looking at the architecture, your technological architecture that are in place. Now, when we think about ecosystems, because data has now become the new asset, we're looking at new data value chains. So this brings a shift from having independent organizations to looking beyond your organizations and creating new value chains across different partners who may not necessarily be in your organization. Next slide, please. So we talked a bit about designing the modern data architecture. So basically, your data architecture is your blueprint of what information you have. And it has to focus from two main, it has to be unified in this new emerging, in this new industry revolution. You have to start to think about modernizing your data architecture to be unified. And two common things that should be focused on from the foundation is data engineering, how you engineer or put together the foundation, and data science, how you create insights and value with your with the data that you're getting. Now, we know most governments today already have existing architectures. So the key elements that they need to be focusing on is how do they make those foundational shifts? And we have suggested 5 main areas, which is starting to look at it from an experimentation and testing mindset to architectural development, starting to use more cross-functional teams to develop or curate data sets and looking at best practices, creating the data interoperability classifications and relative governance considerations, and using what they now refer to data ops, so data operations for data architecture development, establishing a data culture that focuses on improving the enterprise intelligence, so knowledge capturing and sharing of information in different forms and sets. So next slide, please. Then harnessing APIs and enterprise buses. So one of the key things is because we are bringing in these new digital, new emerging technologies, APIs is a way forward for how you can connect seamlessly to more mature technologies and also seamlessly to different forms of technologies using API concepts. And this basically enables new digital products and business models for services and creates new business channels. So one of the key things that you have to put into considerations with this new API economy is that with it, it brings new challenges. And because of these new challenges, such as cybersecurity threats, increased traffic on networks, and challenges around integration with older, more mature technologies, it's important to incorporate what we call a mediation layer. And this mediation layer focuses heavily on understanding security issues, traffic management, and also creating the governance around that between consumers of data and those that are actually producing it. So this also enforces things like what we call about zero trust architecture and security by design. Then another recommendation is working with open standards and open source information. Open standards and open source is quite important for governments to consider, because it helps them to move away from patented non-proprietary software or patented. So this allows easy adaptation of these technologies by different solution providers, and also discouraging being locked into one solution provider based on that. So these are, this is quite important thing for governments to consider. And it would be helpful if countries with more mature GovTech processes are encouraged to also share some of their code with less mature countries, so that they can also establish good standards, or standards that have been used and tried and tested in a much more robust environment. So next slide, please. To summarize, one of the key things that stands out to us, or to consider, is that everything we do has to be goal-orientated, co-created, and it has to be context sensitive, and also your ability to alliterate between non-digital and digital, because the both have to be coexist together. So I'll hand over to my colleague Young to sort of add more if he wanted to. So please go ahead, Young.
Thank you, Joanne. The second key consideration is about interoperability is one of key enablers for a whole of government approach. That means without interoperability, it is very difficult to engage all government entities to join the digital government projects or whole of government approach. So based on the sound design and implementation of interoperability, whole of government approach should be possible. But at the same time, a whole of government approach that covers from setting policy and organizational conditions to implement digital interoperability is also essential for sound interoperability. That means that it is not only related to technological side. The interoperability covers from non-digital part and digital part, both parts as well. So also, one of key feedbacks from our working groups or our other colleagues is that every government has different levels of maturity. That means they need a different approach to have interoperability in their country. So we would like to introduce kind of prioritization. What kind of actions they need to based on the maturity level. To support this note includes the checklist for sound interoperability approach as an annex one that provides different checklists to different maturity groups. So every country can consider different approach or different prioritization based on this checklist. So this is our presentation. So we would like to provide very brief presentation because we prefer to having some enough Q&A sessions, and happy to answer your questions or happy to listen your comments and feedback to our note. Also, our note is available on our website. Let me share the link after this conversation. Thank you. Hand over to Bob.
Please share the link. I'm collecting links and neat stuff from various presentations, and I'll fire it out to all registrants. So if you could just pop it in chat, and I'll just pop it in the neat stuff. Okay. Notes to attendees.
Yeah.
In the meantime, folks, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Did you put it in chat there, Youngseok?
Chat box. Yeah.
No, in the chat. Just put in the message in the chat. You have it enabled because you're a co-host.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Could you just put in the link to the document that you were talking about?
I'm looking for the
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
let me give you a moment. Yeah.
Okay, no problems. Maybe I'll just have a question there for Joanne. Do you have? Are you working at all with the NIM, the National Information Exchange Model, folks, with respect to interoperability? or is this mainly focused on the on various other continents that not North America? Joanne?
Yeah, so we're not working directly with them. We actually have reached out, or we leverage some of the information from these different groups, such as like the open, one of them is the open group, where we've had a conversation with them around interoperability from a digital perspective. We've also looked at the TM Forum, which is one of the areas where they've been looking, because the telcos have been working or have been solving the most challenges around interoperability across the world. So those are some of the groups that we've actually reached out to. And then there's also the ITU, which is part of the UN, which we also get information from. But we're very open to knowing other groups and what they're doing in this space.
Yeah, we're working very closely with you in the open group. I think it's great that you're working with these associations. For that, just for attendees, TMF stands for the Telecommunications Management Forum. And what happens is they have interoperability standards. That's one reason that you can buy a phone on one network and use another one. Everything's seamless and the like for you. So do you guys have any questions? Going. Sorry, I don't see any Q&A.
While waiting for questions, can I share some challenges shared by our working group?
Oh, by all means, please.
Yeah. So I think it's important to know about challenges when countries or government design and implement interoperability. So the main challenges, first one is trust and security issue. So ensuring data security and privacy is the main concern from private sectors or citizens to share their data with the government or public sector. Another challenge is financial resources. Actually, our developing countries have very limited institutional or financial capacity. So there's another challenge. And the third one is legacy technology. So managing interoperability with legacy systems is another challenge, and human resources and data quality and data discoverability and process agreement and global coordinations, inability to scale, varying diverse levels of digital maturity across government, and political leadership and institutional engagement or coordination mechanisms. Those are main challenges and difficulties when other government in the global society may meet when they design and implement interoperability in their country. So understanding these challenges is very important first step to how to address these challenges for their sound interoperability frameworks in their country.
Well, it requires a great deal of, well, I suppose one way you just call it very coldly is stakeholder management, stakeholder understanding of their concerns from, the technology side, but you need a lot of the soft skills. And that's the ability to communicate. And I can't stress that enough. And it's also having a data centricity to your overall approaches. I think that has been a theme throughout the entire conference. Virtually every speaker has emphasized that. The data centricity, and the data is the key asset. And the management of it to date has not been great. So, and of course, the disinformation with the artificial intelligence capabilities are, it's frightening with all the disinformation and misinformation that's out there. So data quality, which is totally a business responsibility, it's not a technology responsibility, is extremely important. There's no point in being interoperable if you're sharing, information that's really poor quality. I didn't want to use the word garbage, but that's basically what it amounts to. And it can lead to social strife in many countries, and it has. The big thing with social media, do you find that there's anything with respect to social media right now that you're noticing with respect to interoperability and sharing information? Youngseok or Joanne, whichever one.
Actually, our note does not cover issues of social media or data from social media, but I agree with your point about the data and then false fake news in the public sector or in the private sector. So there is one of the challenges having data quality, data readiness in the public sector. So when you need to integrate your data from many agencies and also including from the private sector, it is important to have kind of data standard to interchangeable between other agencies or other systems. So also it is important to classify data from the fake news or social media. So also I noticed that there are some trial to get data from social media to have to use those data to the better policy making decision. That means kind of many citizens provide their feedback or comments to the public service on their social network service. That means when the government identified or collect those data from social media, they can use that data to their better public policy decision-making process, and then better public service delivery to citizens based on their feedback and comments in their online service, online community. Yeah.
Have you dealt with the artificial intelligence challenges?
Yeah, that's another point. Yeah. Joanne,
Yeah.
any point?
Oh, yeah. So yes, and to add to Youngking's point, definitely we've been seeing that because we've been doing a lot of work on AI, generative AI, and working with blockchain and looking at different data sets. And one of the key things that we are beginning to do is actually, like Young says, is understanding your data sources. So we always talk to our clients or who want to see data, and we start off by helping them to validate the data, what they want to be able to get from that data. We also look at the sources in terms of credibility of the source. So one of the things that we're beginning to see is that even though people are like, oh, you can go grab data from, say, Google, we now are finding ways to incorporate into the code validation work, and especially now with this ChatGPT that has come up around. It is important now to start to think about how you can actually train that model to detect, like Young said, fake news, sites that are not necessarily credible. And there's a lot of work going on in the background with these more open source areas where they're beginning to highlight, especially with social media, you are now having where you have user interface where you can feedback. So pressing a feedback when you come in to see a site that has bad credibility, you can highlight it and say, this is bad. And this now becomes an attached record that can later on generate more validation and verification as we go further. So things like allowing users to have a feedback loop to be able to say, this was a great site, this was a bad site. That sort of information helps us to filter and to improve the quality of the information that we're getting.
Oh, that's particularly good. Now, any of you folks have any questions? Just use the Q&A session, please. You should be able to access that on your screen. Okay, well, I've got one thing, and again, it goes to AI, but it's more than that, is that a lot of the technology focus has been on the data structure. Okay, whereas now what happens is with learning, you really have to, like you said, what are they going to learn? What are they going to learn from? So the data quality, and I'm talking about both, unstructured, structured data, it doesn't matter. I think that's a problem that we're going to have to look at, because initially when I started off in AI in the 80s, everything was causal. You could always ask the system why, and it was always used in a decision support capability, whereas now people are it's being used autonomously, which is a little bit frightening, and I think that's why a lot of the founders are finding it frightening. Is there any move afoot in the World Bank come up with standards? I don't know if you alluded to that or not, Joanne, with respect to data quality rather than data structure. So I think a lot of the issues are associated with structure and the technology side of the house.
Yeah, so we internally, when we look at it from our corporate perspective, we're exploring the data sources. Not only, we're using it as an opportunity to be quite alliterative. So when you give us these data sources, we actually comb through that data and look through it and design. We use a design thinking approach to how we do things, designing the standards and principles that guide how that information should be used and could be used. And we also try to highlight where we see vulnerabilities, the risks around that. So internally, we're still shaping that up. We're also paying attention to trends that are going on in terms of standards and looking at what other both private sector and public sector, what they're doing in those senses, and helping to guide our clients a little bit more on implementation and approach to implementation. So this is quite young in the sense of what we're doing, but this is why we've come up with this how-to notes to sort of, okay, let's lay the foundations, put together this expectation of what technology can do and what you in the non-digital space need to lay in the foundations in order for technology to be able to answer to that.
You share the validated data sources? Your validated data sources, or is it still confidential within the World Bank?
Well, it's still in the making with the World Bank, because right now we're also talking with our legal teams to try and understand. Yes, so it's all a whole lot of things, from confidentiality, what can we expose, what can't we expose, access controls. So all this is also closely, that's why it's so closely knitted to our non-digital aspect, because whatever technology enables what we decide to do. And so there has to be a culture around it, designed around data interoperability, that's changing from you being an isolated entity, but how do you create those ecosystems? So we're moving away from architecting data. We're moving into data ecosystems, ecosystem building. And that's one of the key things. And this is bringing it from both angles.
Oh, that's very exciting. I think that, maybe we can help you in the open group with that type of approach, and also in other associations. Well, listen, Youngseok and Joanne, I want to thank you very much for a great presentation. It was greatly appreciated. And I'll be posting that link. There's going to be notes to attendees with just sort of neat links all over the place that I've been collecting through chat. So please, take a look at that for the attendees. And a big thank you to Youngseok and Joanne for this great presentation. So I'm going to end the recording now. There we go.